If you've ever shot slow motion film or video footage, you know you need to provide ample lighting. You might have noticed one thing while watching TV or films. Most of the slow motion shots take place in broad daylight, not at night or in some dingy dark place. The reason for that is you have to have ample lighting to be able to capture the motion properly. Once you keep your frame rate at over 300 frames per second, lighting becomes even more pivotal. It grows exponentially, the need for good lighting. Hang on to the end of this video because I'm going to explain everything you need to know about slow motion compensation so you can properly expose your slow motion footage. Hi, I'm Jim Costa. I'm a full-time working photographer, video producer, video editor, and technology pro. If you like what you see in this video, stick around to the end because I've got a couple of photography, video, filmmaking, and editing freebies, and even some training courses I'll tell you about that will definitely help to improve your photography, video production, and filmmaking work, and help grow your business through earned media exposure, which is basically through free advertising. I welcome your comments, questions, and more on all of my videos. If you like what you see, subscribe to my channel and hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new video each and every Wednesday. Just so you know, I've done companion videos on related topics such as slow motion shooting and editing, and also motion blur. And I'll link to those in the description below so you can watch them after watching this video and learn even more ways to produce high quality slow motion or motion blur footage. The normal frame rates most video and filmmakers are used to are 24 frames per second, which is abbreviated as FPS, used in motion pictures, 25 frames per second, which is the TV standard for much of the world, and 30 frames per second, which is the frame rate for TV in the United States. Slow motion cameras work by capturing images at very, very fast speeds, say 1,000 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second or much higher. This means that the exposure that the sensor has for each frame is only 1/1000th of a second for this 1000 FPS example. When the exposure is so short, the amount of light that hits the sensor is very small. This is why slow motion footage appears darker and will need more lighting to compensate. Even DSLR, mirrorless, or video cameras used by most of us in video production and filmmaking have this problem when shooting at frame rates of, say, 200 frames per second or less. If you know your exposure triangle, you know that you have 3 settings you can adjust. The shutter speed, which is what you're changing to create the slow motion or the blur in the first place, the ISO, and the aperture. You don't want to increase the ISO too much to let in more light when shooting slow motion because you'll be adding a lot of grain to the footage and that will look terrible in slow motion because it'll be amplified. This only leaves the aperture to change to adjust for the change in lighting. Remember, because you're shooting frames so fast, very little light will get to the camera sensor. As such, you need to compensate for the lower levels of light by adjusting your f-stop to compensate for the change in frames per second of shooting. This is where the name slow motion compensation comes from. Failure to compensate for this effect will yield unusable footage that is way too dark. I'm going to review the changes in the f-stop that you should make, but if you miss something, don't worry. I'll put the list of those changes in the description below. As far as t-stops on motion picture camera lenses go, use the settings I list as your guide and stop up or down about 1/2 a t-stop to begin and make other changes in quarter stop increments, either way until you dial in the exposure properly. Although this topic is called slow motion compensation, it also applies to fast motion as well, just in reverse. When you shoot at frame rates slower than 24 frames per second, you're shooting less frames per second. You're letting in more light to the sensor, not less, because the frames are open and exposing for a longer period of time. So you can squeeze less frames in the same amount of time. As such, you will also need to adjust your aperture to compensate for that as well. Use this list as a starting guide for shooting, but remember, lighting conditions and shooting circumstances change, so you'll want to shoot some test shots to make certain your exposure is acceptable. I like to start with the following settings for the best slow motion footage. Set your ISO to 320, but never anymore, to add more light with minimal noise, and set the compression ratio to 3:1 if you can, to apply less compression to the footage and use the highest bitrate available that your camera will allow. I consider the base frame rate for this video to be 24 frames per second, the common setting for filmmaking and video production for that cinematic look that all us videographers and filmmakers are looking for. For those who don't know, the compression ratio is the size of the original video compared to the compressed video. Uncompressed video has a compression ratio of 1:1. Lossy videos can get very high compression, something like 1:200 compression isn't unheard of for some heavily compressed video formats. I use a 3:1 ratio in slow motion footage because you have many more frames of footage. More frames equal more information. Reversing the compression ratio to 1:3 would mean less information in the footage that you shoot, and I don't want that. I want more information. Bitrate is the number of bits per second. The symbol is bit/s. It generally determines the size and quality of video and audio files that are captured. The higher the bitrate, the better the quality and the larger the file size. And again, with slow motion footage particularly, you need more information to have a better quality image or footage that you're shooting. Every time you add to the base frame rate by adding more frames per second, it means light loss. Conversely, every time you subtract from the base frame rate, you're adding light. In fact, shooting at slower frame rates will give you the fast motion like I mentioned earlier, not slow motion, when it's played back at the base frame rate of 24 frames per second in your editing timeline. Here's a list of f-stop gain or loss and how to change it accordingly based on your frame rate. When shooting at 5 frames per second, close the f-stop 2 1/4 stops. 6 frames per second, close the f-stop 2 stops. 7 frames per second, close your f-stop 1 3/4 stops. 8 frames per second, close the f-stop 1 2/3 stops. 9 frames per second, close the f-stop 1 1/3 stops. If shooting 10 or 11 frames per second, close the f-stop 1 1/4 stops. For 12 or 13 frames per second, close the f-stop 1 full stop. If you're shooting at 14 frames per second, close the f-stop 3/4 of a stop. For 15 or 16 frames per second, close the f-stop 2/3 of a stop. For 17 frames per second, close the f-stop a half a stop. For 18 or 19 frames per second, close the f-stop 1/3 of a stop. 20 to 22 FPS, close the f-stop 1/4 stop. For 23 to 26 frames per second, you close the f-stop 0 stops. In other words, leave the f-stop or the aperture exactly where it is when you have the exposure correct. For 27 to 29 frames per second, open the f-stop 1/4 of a stop. For 30 to 32 frames per second, open the f-stop 1/3 of a stop. 33 to 35 frames per second, open the f-stop a half a stop. For 36 to 39 frames per second, open the f-stop 2/3 of a stop. For 40 to 44 frames per second, open the f-stop 3/4 of a stop. For 45 to 52 frames per second shooting, open the f-stop 1 full stop. For 53 to 58 frames per second, open the f-stop 1 1/4 stops. For 59 to 64 frames per second shooting, open the f-stop 1 1/3 stops. If you're shooting 65 to 71 frames per second, open the f-stop 1 1/2 stops. If you're shooting 72 to 78 frames per second, open the f-stop 1 2/3 of a stop. For 79 to 88 frames per second, open the f-stop 1 3/4 stops. For 89 to 104 frames per second, open the f-stop 2 full stops. For 105 to 177 frames per second, open the f-stop 2 1/4 stops. For 118 to 128 frames per second, open the f-stop 2 1/3 stops. When shooting 129 to 143 frames per second, open the f-stop 2 1/2 stops. For 144 to 156 frames per second, open the f-stop 2 2/3 stops. For 157 to 176 frames per second, open the f-stop 2 3/4 stops. For 177 to 209 frames per second, open the f-stop 3 full stops. I'm stopping here because for most of us in the video and filmmaking profession, we're probably not going to be shooting at frame rates much higher than 209 frames per second, except in some specialized circumstances. For those times, adjust in the following way. For frame rates of 210 frames per second or higher, I recommend opening the f-stop 1/4 of a stop for every 30 to 32 frame per second increase. Again, these are guides and a starting place. Use them as a starting point, but take test shots to gauge your specific shooting situations. One final note. You may be wondering why I haven't talked about extremely high frame rates, say thousands of frames per second or more. While it's true that there are cameras in existence that can shoot millions of frames per second, they are highly specialized and used only rarely in scientific or specialized filmmaking applications. My guess is that most of us will never encounter one in our entire lives, so I viewed those circumstances as beyond the scope of this video. Now, if this is making sense to you, but I've got it in the comments section below. My question of the day is, have you ever shot slow motion footage before? If you have, what were you shooting? Leave a comment below and let us know. If you found the information in this video useful, I'd like to hear about it from you. If you liked it and want to see more videos like this, then follow my YouTube channel, Jim Costa Films. If you think what you saw was great, please do like it. If you have an opinion, feel free to comment below. If you know someone who could benefit from the information that I provided, please share the video. You can connect with me and my company, Jim Costa Films, on social media and online, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and the web by searching for Jim Costa Films. In fact, I currently have over 4,600 videos on my YouTube channel, Jim Costa Films, so feel free to check out many of my other videos for great tips and suggestions. Thank you for sticking around this long. I mentioned at the beginning about some freebies and training. As a professional video producer and photographer, I've created an absolutely free cheat sheet for you on all the best camera settings to shoot with your DSLR, mirrorless, or video camera that will show you the settings that will allow your photos, and particularly your videos, to shine and stand out from the competition. The link to get that cheat sheet is just below in the video description. Best of all, my cheat sheet specializes in shooting video with any type of camera. In it, you'll find all the info you need on important video techniques such as white balance, color temperature, frame rates, and more. I've also created an editing training course for Adobe Premiere Pro. My Quick Start training is designed to get you up in editing video in under 2 hours and includes over 100 tips, tricks, and keyboard shortcuts for video editors that get you started in the program and makes your workflow go much faster. Now, I'm also affiliated with Christina Nicholson, a fellow media veteran like myself who helps businesses and entrepreneurs reach tons of their ideal customers or clients through the power of media without spending big bucks on advertising. I've worked with Christina and used her advice and training successfully, so I know from first-hand experience that it works great. The program Christina and I are now offering is called the Media Mentoring Program, and it will help you to take advantage of mainstream media so you can stand out from the competition, because that's not something everyone has access to. Best of all, unlike paid ads and sponsorships, you can gain lots of exposure and credibility to become the go-to brand everyone talks about and wants to do business with without spending a fortune on advertising, because the program is geared to get you free advertising. I'll link to those cheat sheets and training courses in the description below as well. There's videos on both courses that will give you an overview of how they can help you and links to get more information. You can help to support my channel by purchasing my training courses, requesting my free downloads, or by hiring me to shoot and edit for you. Remember, I've also done other videos on filmmaking and video production, and I'll link to those in the description below. Finally, If you follow me for a while now, you know that I have a private community of photographers, videographers, and filmmakers, just like you, on Facebook, where I share other pro tips and tricks. It's called Video Producers and Content Creators. I love new members who want to share their work, learn from others, and also help others based on their own skills and experiences. The group is private and only for people in the filmmaking, video production, and photography industries that I personally work in myself. It's not a public group like my business Facebook page that I talked about earlier. That's public and anyone can see that because I want them to find it and to hire me to do work for them. You'll find a link to that group in the description below, so feel free to join it where you can learn even more.